Welcome to Hockey Night in Canada, Punjabi's Inside the Game, and we have a very, very special guest today. You've heard his music all over the globe. He's been in the music industry for 20 years, had hits, and he's also a Calgary Flames fan. Let me welcome Raghav to the show. Thanks for joining us on Hockey Night in Canada, Punjabi, Raghav.
It's pretty special. Thank you very much. I think before we get started, I just want to say what you guys have done for all Canadians, not just the Punjabi community, it's very special in terms of just how people not just view the sport but view our culture. And it's been something that when I have folks visit from other countries, they recognize how special it is. And so I just wanted you to know that I see that.
Well, thank you very much, and you've always been supportive. Whether it's your beloved Calgary Flames playing or just across the board. So really appreciate it. And I want to get to the big event happening this week, March 30th. It's the Calgary Flames versus the LA Kings. But most importantly, it's South Asian Celebration Night. You are going to be involved. You're an ambassador with the club now for this night, and you're a Calgary guy. Like, what does being involved with this night mean to you?
It's pretty crazy. I mean, I couldn't have imagined that this would have been the case even 5 years ago. And I think that there's been so much conversation, some helpful, maybe some not helpful, around how we are as people in the world different from one another over the last 8, 10 years. And actually, when I tour with my music, I recognize how similar we all are, regardless of how backgrounds from. That's not just a cheesy thing to say, it's really true. And in Canada, I can't think of anything more unifying than the game of hockey, And for me and my cousins growing up, we always felt like it was the most important thing, Even at our Indian music parties on the weekends, it was Hockey Night in Canada. So I don't think this was possible a few years ago. The fact that it is now is really special. And my goal in the ambassadorship is to make sure that it's really unifying for everybody in the city, in the hockey community, and in the country.
Well, you did mention music has a similar role. Like it's a common bond where people come together. If it's a great song, if it's a great beat, you focus on that. You don't focus on the differences. And we're seeing that now in the music world as well, where, something that you were vital to, I want to say, 2 decades ago of having collaborations and mixing cultures. And it feels like now the rest of the music world is also catching up to that in India and Canada as well. But hockey is a common bond. So you kind of referenced it a little bit. How did your start of, love of hockey really start? You mentioned your cousins. Did they play a big role in it as well?
Probably my first memory is Rendezvous '87. And shortly before that, I think there was an exhibition game where Team Sweden came to town. My dad got some tickets through work, and he took my sister to the game instead of me. And I remember being really bummed about that and watching it on TV, and like the voices of Ed Whalen and Peter Marr and the names like Lube and Vernon and Poplinski and Hunter and McDonald, like McInnes. Those were the names of my childhood. Like they were, I probably wrote their names down in my fake trade books, like any kid did, more than any of my homework in my elementary years. So it was the biggest part of my life, maybe even more than music when I was a kid. And I always wanted to be involved in it in some way. And I don't know if that'll ever happen, but this weekend itself is pretty cool because when you're young, you don't feel the differences between you and other kids.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like me and Steve and Brad, we were kind of the same. And as you get older, it's, society points out those differences to you, and you can kind of get lost or feel different. You know what I mean? And although it's much different for kids now, I just think hockey plays a really unifying role in this country in terms of bringing us together. And the fact that the Flames, the Canucks have done it. I saw the Oilers do it last weekend. They're recognizing a huge and important part of the Canadian community now, and what hockey means in terms of unifying that is really special. It's something like you and I couldn't have imagined happening a few years ago.
Absolutely. And it's okay to celebrate each other, right? Like sometimes we're seen as that separate. To your point, that unification is really important where, hey, you might not be a part of the community, but it's all right to learn about the community. It's also okay to celebrate your neighbor, whatever their background is. And this is a phenomenon that has started up in the last 3 or 4 years, but it's a good way to make the world feel a little smaller where, what's important to your neighbor or somebody that's living across the street from you. So very much echo those thoughts that you mentioned. But for you as a Calgary kid, like just
Yeah.
being there, growing up there, you mentioned some of the players that you watch, like to be in this position for your home team, that's got to hit different, right?
Totally. I mean, it's funny because it's probably the one area of my life that allows me to escape from every other area of my life. When a game's on, when I'm thinking about the Flames, whether it's positive or it's an evening where I have to lament, like it is complete escapism, and it's the fabric of like who I am. It's such a big part. Like I'm a touring musician, so oftentimes I'm in India or Dubai, and I managed to wake up to watch the games. Like it's a real thing. I got a cousin in Australia that does the same thing. So um, fans know what that's like. It's just a big part of who we are, and to see the Flames evolving now, not only on the ice but off the ice in a way that I think the entire community can be proud of as hockey fans is great.
Okay, before I get into your Flames fandom and get some answers about your history with the team
Yeah.
and your favorite players, all that, let's focus on Saturday night a little bit. It'll be on Hockey Night in Canada, Punjabi. We're really happy and proud that we're going to be able to broadcast this game. It
Yeah.
means a lot to us as well. But what do you have in store for that night?
Well, like you said, I think what's happening is I'm going to be the ambassador to the South Asian community on behalf of the Calgary Flames, and we're going to kind of unveil that. There'll be a ceremonial puck drop. There'd been some conversation as to whether or not I'd perform, and I thought this is such a special thing for me in terms of the relationship. I didn't want it to appear like self-serving, like give me the mic and let me sing and
Mhm.
and do all that. So there's going to be lots of other talent. Zoe Korsahota, who did the beautiful jerseys. What we're doing is we're celebrating the diversity of talent within the community itself in Calgary. I mean, we're celebrating her. Simone Rajan's going to be doing the national anthem, and there's going to be cool stuff planned throughout the evening. And hopefully, it'll open a few eyes into. We have a video from the prophecy coming, and I'm working on one with Tesher. Let's see if that, he's a busy guy right now, but I know he's a big hockey fan. So there's just like there's a lot of cool things that will celebrate people who've accomplished things in all walks of life and what hockey means to them.
Yeah, I love that as well because it's a celebration of the community and the
Yeah.
diversity within the community. So looking forward to on Saturday night. As I mentioned, it will be on Hockey Night in Canada, Punjabi. All right, let's get into your Flames fandom a little bit because,
Okay.
we've known each other going back, I want to say we met at an event in Surrey, British Columbia,
Yeah.
Wickfest, Haley
Haley
Wickenheiser's.
Wickenheiser. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
outside of that, kept in touch online. But I don't know too much about your Flames fandom. So let's get
Oh.
into it. Your favorite current Flame on the current team. Do you have a go-to player?
I think this year the guy that's shone through for me is Connor Zary. I think obviously with the Flames, there's an eye on the future here. When I mean future, I mean probably 3 to 4 years down the road. But the call-ups this year have been a real boost of energy. I think there was a danger this year that it could have become stale very quickly if the team didn't perform well. And while I'm sure no one's pleased with the fact that we're likely to miss the playoffs this year, there seems to be a different energy around the team in terms of there's a commitment to a direction that the fan base here I think has craved for some time, particularly since we lost Chucky and Johnny. And I think Connor Zary kind of represents that in terms of maybe someone who wouldn't have had an opportunity had it been the way things were conducted in the past, where we were trying to win right away. And it's pretty cool because I think he'll be an integral part of what happens in 4 years.
Absolutely, that's a great answer. Not one I was expecting, but I can understand it from a market that's looking at the future, and that's a great answer. All-time favorite Flame.
Uh, I mean, it's hard to not to rub salt in Vancouver wounds, but it's hard not to pick Mike Vernon for that.
Okay.
He's from Calgary, obviously a Hall of Famer. But I think if anybody sits down and watches Game 7 overtime in 1989 against the Canucks, it's like it's pretty much a one-man show, and Vernie did that on a lot of nights, particularly in a division where we were always maybe one player away against the Oilers because they had the great ones. So uh, I think that everybody that has a Stanley Cup ring or a banner or a memory of the 1989 Cup team owes Mike Vernon a huge debt of gratitude.
And now also a Hall of Famer as well. Had to wait a little while, but he's in the Hall, so congratulations. All right, this might be a tough one because you mentioned 89, but growing up in the early 2000s, the Flames had some great moments
Yeah.
there, went to a cup final. What is your favorite Flames moment of all time?
Um, again, I apologize to. There's a couple here. I think the Steve Smith goal, unfortunately for Steve in
Oilers fans
'86.
will be happy with that one. Okay.
Yeah, well, they have a lot to be happy about in the '80s, so they can allow me that one moment of glory. And breaking the cup curse in '89, in 2004, in round one in Vancouver. Iginla dominated Game 7, and it's almost when I say Vernon, it's like with the caveat that Jerome Iginla is the obvious answer
Sure. Yeah.
because he's everybody's favorite Flame of all time in terms of just not only his play but his character. But to win that game the way it happened after the Cook goal and what that meant to the franchise in terms of, I'm not sure the Calgary Flames are still the Calgary Flames if they don't have that run there. So Jelena's goal and then the subsequent run to the finals where I believe we won the Stanley Cup. Probably that moment in Game 7.
All right. I love talking hockey with you. We got to get you in studio in Vancouver one day as well. So make it happen when you're back in
Yeah,
the lower mainland.
I'll
Raghav,
pick less Canuck. I'll pick less Canuck killing moments in the future.
History is history. What can you say? You can't
Yeah.
change history. So it's been a good rivalry as well. When both teams are good in history, it's been a ferocious rivalry. So maybe one day it'll happen again. But Raghav, thank you so much for joining us on Hockey Night in Canada, Punjabi. And I do want to give a shout out to one of your kids who, if you want to know how diehard this family is of Flames fans, one of his kids was also wearing a Flames jersey as we were prepping for this interview.
Well, that was my daughter's friend, but my daughter did get a
Okay.
Flames jersey today, and she's pretty diehard. It's pretty impressive.
All
So
right.
hopefully by the time she's in junior high, she can have little Stanley Cup miniatures from those years in her room. That'd be great.
There we go. Look into the future. I love it. Thank you very much for joining us, Raghav. And like I said, we got to get you in studio when you're in Vancouver. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, you take care of Lindy and Big Z for us over there. We love them over here.
Of course. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned as well for Hockey Night in Canada, Punjabi. We've got the game South Asian Night celebration on Hockey Night. And on top of that, always like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you next time.